This is Carl Polachuk, and you're listening to the SMB Community Podcast, produced by and for the Small Biz Thoughts community. We're dedicated to making every IT professional a successful IT professional. Welcome to another SMB Community Podcast. I'm joined today by Keith Gillette, who is a process pragmatist and founder and CEO of TaskTrain. Welcome, sir.
Thanks so much for having me, Carl. I've admired your body of work afar for years, so it's great to finally meet you and an honor to be here. Thanks.
Thank you. So a series of questions. First of all, what's a process pragmatist?
Yes.
Is that a degree? You got that from the University of Chicago? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, you have to understand that one of my personality peculiarities is that I have an alarming and almost annoying affection for alliteration. So I always try to find a way to work an alliterative turn of phrase into my work. TaskTrain, process pragmatist. You get the idea.
Alarming, annoying alliteration.
Sorry, but it's just a bit of professional branding for my consulting services, which is kind of meant to tie together two of my passions. First, process management, which is really, in my view, the application of systems thinking, general systems theory. The subject matter is my first master's degree, the application of those to the problems of organizational functioning. And then second, philosophy, which was my undergrad degree and my continuing professional intellectual interest, in particular, an area of philosophy called pragmatism, which was an American movement in philosophy founded by Charles Sanders Peirce and William James at the beginning of the 20th century. And that's really about the meaning of concepts being sought in practical applications. The function of thought is to guide action, truth to be tested by practical consequences of belief. So that's my approach to thinking about organizational efficiency in the consulting work that I do, theoretical lens of systems theory and occasionally pragmatic philosophy. But I try to do so in a very practical way, which is what that comes from.
Okay. So the next question is, founder of TaskTrain. So is TaskTrain something that came out of your background, or is it something that you created fresh that basically try to help your clients?
Right. No, it's definitely an outgrowth of my professional career. So just to step back a moment, while I'd characterize myself right now as an emerging software entrepreneur with the launch of TaskTrain, my professional background is in IT operations management. I came up as a support technician, then a network and systems administrator back in the days before DevOps engineers, but quickly moved into IT management and leadership. And I had the honor of being elected to serve as president of Illinois Chief Technology Officers when I lived near Chicago. So I've headed several IT departments, both embedded in organizations and also in virtual, fractional, or interim CIO roles. And I continue to do that kind of CIO at your service consulting as well. But how that ties into TaskTrain is, as a systems administrator, I was just way too often burned by the lack of system configuration and procedural documentation. So I really became diligent in documenting everything I did. I carried that lesson with me through my advancement into IT leadership. Now, the specific crystallizing event for the idea behind TaskTrain occurred a number of years ago. I was listening to the audiobook of the Checklist Manifesto by
Atul Gawande.
Atul Gawande, Harvard medical professor. The impetus came long before that, as I said, being burned by a lack of procedural documentation. I mean, yeah, I'm sure you know how it is. You go in there and nothing's documented. You're charged with fixing something, but you have to first figure out how everything is connected and configured. Huge waste of time. And even beyond that, I found that even for the systems that I had installed and configured myself, I'd come back a couple of months later and have to make a change or fix a glitch. I'd not remember what I'd done myself. As I said, I became very diligent in doing system documentation. I created my own static web internet system of documentation for the configuration documentation and procedural documentation back in the day. And I moved that when I moved into IT leadership. My motto was, if it's not documented, it's not done. So in those leadership roles, I'd ensure my teams would develop and verify documentation as part of project implementation. Even so, I found that even having a competent, caring, committed team and having all that documentation in place, I found we screwed up way more than we should have, and done dumb stuff, things that were entirely avoidable if we had consistently followed those procedures, our own documentation. Now, that's, as you know, just because IT is complicated, and not everything can be automated, even in the age of DevOps. So there's still that human factor, and the rush of whatever, trying to serve a user, finish a setup. A tech would forget a step. That would inevitably come back to bite us. I forgot to deploy the anti-malware.
Right.
After
Oh yeah. Well, I'm a
OS.
huge fan of the checklist and the standard operating procedures and all that. So you have used two terms, and I want to make sure people don't think they're equivalent. So one is process documentation. The other one was system documentation. Now, to me, system documentation is what is the processor, what's the serial number, how much memory does it have, right? That sort of thing, where process is, okay, this is how you set up a new workstation to make sure you don't forget the antivirus or the PDF reader or whatever it happens to be. So those are two very different things. So
absolutely.
TaskTrain helps with both of those?
We're primarily focused on the process or procedural documentation. So what I found was that even though we tracked all of our service requests in a ticketing system and we had documented our procedures, there was still this gap between that ticketing workflow and those SOPs. So when I heard Atul Gawande talking about just remarkable results from like something as humble as the checklist,
right.
as you know, you nodded when I mentioned that book, so I assume you're familiar. In that book, he describes the use of checklists in construction and aviation and his own work with the World Health Organization, bringing checklists into healthcare with the safe surgery checklist, and that simple thing generated like amazing results: 40% reduction in surgery deaths and 36% decrease in surgical complications. So I thought that maybe this idea presented a way to bridge that gap between ticketing workflow. And so I started to flesh out a prototype and a business model for TaskTrain to allow us to capture process documentation in a way that integrates it into everyday workflow.
All right. So a couple things, housekeeping. Let's take a step back. TaskTrain, the website is TaskTrain, common spelling, .app.
Correct.
So it's an app. Is that up yet? Ready to go?
It is up and ready to go. So we are in our public beta. You can go right to tasktrain.app and click on sign up free, and try it for free and sign up for an account and kick the tires in our beta. I would love to hear what people think of the application. So I can take a moment and describe what it is it does.
Yeah, so I'm interested. So if I've got a PSA, does this plug into my PSA? Is it completely separate?
Right now, we are a standalone application. So we provide I would describe us this way: we're a lightweight process management software as a service application. What something like Basecamp or Asana do for project management, that is planning and executing a unique set of tasks that you do once to achieve a particular goal, TaskTrain does that for process management, planning and executing ongoing activities you repeatedly perform to carry out those everyday business operations and deliver value to stakeholders that way. And so we the idea itself is super simple. It's a checklist app, as the Talk About Checklist Manifesto would imply. It allows you to document your standard operating procedures in the form of a multi-level checklist with embedded training at each step, and then integrate those into your workflow by turning them into actionable assignments. That's the ticketing part. So we marry the digital procedure manual that most likely sits on your intranet with a built-in ticketing or basic work order system.
So with let's say a new PC setup process, is this something where there's just one generic document for everybody, or can I then customize so that this company has one setup, this company has a different setup, and so I've got customized lists for each of my clients?
Right. That's it was important to me to think about multiple organizations in designing TaskTrain. So one of our unique features is that we offer multiple workspaces or multiple organizations. The basic metaphor for TaskTrain is the procedure manual. So you have in your organization as many manuals as you want, each of which contains as many procedures as you want, with administered privileges at that manual level. But you can also be a member of multiple organizations or workspaces and freely move or copy your procedures between them and then customize them for each organization, which has an entirely different subscription and entirely different user set as you need it.
Very cool. So how is this, what does it look like? Like if I'm thinking like a technician is going to do this, how is it different from Word, right? Of just saying, okay, open Word, click on the little bullet icon. So now I've got a bulleted checklist.
Yes.
How does this look like?
Sure. So, as I said, the metaphor is a procedure manual. So you can, it's basically a set of folders that you can divide into different sections to organize your procedures, and the procedures themselves then are an outline. So you can not just a differentiator for us versus a trivial checklist app is that it's not just a flat list. So it's not just a one level bullet. You can have multiple levels of tasks to allow you to document more complicated procedures. And then, as I said, the unique thing is that at each of those steps, you can have embedded training. So, you could paste that into your Word document as well in line, but we have that linked from each step in this collapsible outline view that you can choose to look at or not, depending on whether you need that training. So it's great for bringing new techs up to speed. If they don't know a procedure yet, you can link to the procedure manual or have a video at a particular step in a configuration procedure, for example. Or if you just haven't done it in a while and you need a refresher, you've got those resources available. But otherwise, it's just a quick to go checklist. And each of those steps then in the procedure that you define, when you're actually working on them, unlike a static Word document, becomes a ticket, right? It becomes its own assignment in the language that we use inside the application. And so it's trackable, right? We know what status it's in, and there's not just done or not done. We have actually 5 levels of completion status that allow you and your team to track. And it's not just one tech. So if you have a procedure that involves coordinating among several people, those handoffs are often where it goes wrong. You can assign each step in your procedure to a different individual on your team with a unique start and due date for each of them. And you can have comments on that instance, that assignment, that allows the team to coordinate on the particular setup that they're doing. So that's really how it differs from a Word document or your Confluence, intranet right now.
Right. And this is all housed at your site? So I access it through a web browser?
That's correct. So it's a web application. It's progressive web application. So it's It's mobile friendly. You can use it on your mobile device as well as on the desktop. It's much easier to set up your procedures when you're on the web version, so you have a large view to do the authoring. But once you're there, you can access them from multiple devices.
So do technicians like use their phone to actually walk through the checklist, and like they tap a button and say, I've done that, I've done that, I've done that?
That's exactly right. That's what the design allows. So wherever you are, you just sign in to your account on TaskTrain.app. You can make it an installable icon on your iPhone or Android device, and it'll be there with your current assignments. Tap through whichever tasks you're working on. You can say this is in progress or this is blocked, and write a comment. The rest of the team gets notified. Exactly.
And how's it licensed? By client, by user, by company?
So it's a freemium per user monthly or annual subscription fee. So there are multiple tiers depending on your intensity of usage, and you can see those on our pricing page on TaskTrain.app. But you can try it out for free. There's a free forever version that is very fully functional. You just get a cap on the number of assignments that you can have going at any one time.
Oh, so right now folks could sign up and start using it, but they couldn't, it's probably not enough quantity for to run their entire managed service business.
Exactly. But you get the full access to the functionality and see if it would be a valuable tool for your individual use case.
So it's not crippleware.
No. We have really the only significant cap right now is the number of open assignments that you have on the free version. So. And
are the users tiered? So there's like a service manager and technicians underneath that?
Yes, so that's another unique feature that we have implemented, is that each manual or collection of procedures has its own set of permissions. So you can group access levels there. There are, within each organization, 3 levels of access. So you can delegate the creation of procedures and the management of assignments in a different set of teams to different people. And then within each manual, you've got, as I mentioned, 4 levels of access to differentiate people who can author procedures from those who are just could be assigned procedures as well.
So obviously the question for MSPs is what happens when an employee leaves. Obviously I can change their password and disable their account, but can I delete it, or have all those checklists they've executed go away as well?
No, so we keep a reference to the account even when someone leaves an organization, or you delete the user. The account information stays behind and stays tied to the assignments that are completed. So you have a history of everything, all of your workflows. So if you need to go back and audit when a particular ticket was closed or opened, or when a step was done and who did it, all of that information is there in the history.
Very cool. So how many folks do you have using this right now?
Well, we have just moved from our private beta with a very limited number of users there, and are moving, as I said, into our public beta. So we're working with our very first companies right now to get people onboarded, and that's why I'm here to get the word out and get more people on the system.
So luckily, if when this airs, you should have another 5,000.
That's right.
Yeah, sure. And what's the, can you give us an idea of the pricing? We don't need the details, but kind of like ballpark, this is like $1,000 a person, something like that?
No. So as I said, we have a free tier, but the basic tier starts at $650 a month per user, and our top end tier is $25 a month per member.
Okay, so if somebody's got 5 technicians, then they're basically $650 times 5, so they're about under $35.
Yeah, exactly. And so if you've got a low volume workload and you only have those number of technicians who are going to be using it, very affordable. I come out of small and small organizations primarily, and so having something that was tuned for small and medium business was what I was aiming for here. That's a big difference between process management with a capital P and the real world of small and medium businesses. That there are lots of great concepts and tools that are developed for the enterprise, but they are neither necessarily, they're certainly not priced and not necessarily well adapted to smaller organizations. So I've really tried to come up with something that scales and does process management for smaller organizations. At this level, we're not talking about business process modeling or an all-encompassing enterprise resource planning model. It's documentation and process execution, the things that authors like you and Michael Gerber, author of the E-Myth, and Sam Carpenter, who wrote Work the System and Systems Mindset. Gino Wickman, I know your listeners are familiar with his work
Right.
in EOS. They all articulate the need for this, and that's really where this tool sits.
So as a best practice, do you recommend that folks do this on their phone versus bringing up a web page? I mean, it seems to me if you're sitting at a client computer, you got a browser in front of you. So, does it make any sense to do it on your phone, or is that just consistency, or
That's just giving the broadest number of options, because so many people are mobile right now, and maybe you're in the server closet and you need to follow the checklist for testing your UPS or whatever the case may be. You've got that assignment going, and lugging the laptop in there is not what you are wanting to do. So you call up that particular procedure or that particular assignment on your smartphone and execute it there. But for most usage, I would recommend the desktop version. You get a much better view just because of the screen real estate that you have available.
Right. And what does the construction look like? Is it kind of like a Word file where you say, I need the item, and then indent a section, and then item?
Yes, so the actual procedure builder is, I would say, similar to an outliner that you have in Microsoft Word, the outline view there, or any text editor that supports that. But each step is draggable, or there are keyboard shortcuts for moving steps up and down, or indenting or outdenting steps as you're building your procedure in the form of this collapsible checklist. And then you have this extra spot for adding content at each step, which is an entirely separate pane, so that when you're looking at it, you can just look at, okay, here's the work instruction view, right? A very concise summary of what needs to be done, and then that detail level of the manual, the exploded parts view, the written description, the video is in a separate pane that you don't have to look at or even populate if it's so simple. And that's a real distinction between what you'd get in a static word processing document, where if you're going to put in a video, it's going to be stuck in the middle of your screen every time you look at it, and you've got to scroll through a lot of stuff that you might not necessarily need at that point.
Right. So it sounds like a lot of stuff can be, I don't know if embedded is the right word, but
yes,
attached to this. So does that include from the field? So if a technician takes a picture of something, they can say, this is what the back of the router looks like, or something like that?
That is on the product roadmap. Absolutely. So right now our commenting system is text only, but attachments to comments on a step level is one of our next build features. So I'm glad to hear that is a demand that we have on our list already.
Very cool. So that just popped into my head. So
Yep.
folks can get a hold of you at the TaskTrain.app. Where else can they get a hold of you?
Keith at TaskTrain.app is probably the best place to reach me, and I do have a LinkedIn presence as well. So feel free to reach out to me there. It's just /Gillette, IN/Gillette on LinkedIn.
All right. And then TaskTrain on Facebook and Twitter and.
Yes, all of those social media apps. So on Twitter, we are task_train, and on Facebook, it's TaskTrain, one word.
Very cool. So where do you go from here? Obviously, you're public beta, you get 1,000 subscribers, and then what's next?
Well, I'm really committed to seeing this platform to the next level. This is, as I talked about at the beginning, the tool that I wanted or was missing from my tool set when I was actively running IT operations, and I want to see it creating value for people in the world. And because really instilling good processes and seeing the results of efficiencies in organizations is one of my passions. I'm as you probably have gleaned from my process pragmatist moniker, a process nerd, and I would love to help people with that, both through this tool, and if there are any engagements that would involve more in-depth in-person consultation, we're available for that as well in providing process improvement, strategic planning, and IT consulting. I would also like to invite the audience of Small Business Thoughts to a special offer. We are, now that we've entered public beta, are looking to generate a case study of using TaskTrain for process improvement. So if you're a service leader with a need for and commitment to process documentation, workflow automation and coordination like we've been talking about, I would love to talk to you. So I can offer a process improvement consultation, concierge onboarding to TaskTrain, and discount on subscriptions for 75% savings for the first year.
Wow, very cool. Well, thank you very much. And they just get a hold of you at Keith at TaskTrain?
Keith at TaskTrain.app is the best way to reach me. And if you sign into the app to check it out, there's intercom available there. So you just press the question mark icon and chat in a question, and it'll come to me or one of my partners, and we can get right back to you that way inside the application.
And is the app, you download it from your site or from Apple or Google?
We are a progressive web app, so you go right to TaskTrain.app to access it.
Very cool. All right. Well, thank you very much for being here. Any final words of wisdom before we go?
I really just want to thank you for the work that you do, Carl. Like I said, I've admired your work from afar, and was part of the spark for building TaskTrain was seeing your commitment to good practices, standard operating procedures, SOP Friday. So that's just a word of thanks, and thanks for having me on to talk about the passion project that I have with TaskTrain.
Well, thank you for the kind words, and I'm very grateful to have you here. So have folks check it out at tasktrain.app, and they get connected and just take a look around. And of course, you'll take any feedback they have, I'm sure.
That's absolutely right. Like, we are looking for a public launch with a couple of more features, integrations into other systems. But I would love to hear what people see a need for in the system, so that we can prep for that full public launch.
Very good. Thanks for being here. Keith Gillette from TaskTrain.app. And that will conclude another SMB Community Podcast. Thank you for tuning in to the SMB Community Podcast. If you found this useful, interesting, or fun, please subscribe, share with your friends, and give us a thumbs up on your favorite social media. Please check out the show notes at smbcommunitypodcast.com and give us your feedback.